what is the true gift of friendship? And how does friendship, which may appear to be a personal or merely private affair, connect to the great predicaments and horrors we now face in the world in our times? These are some of the questions I'm excited to explore with Gustavo Esteva in this conversation around chapter 79 on friendship in the classical Tamil masterpiece on ethics, power, and love, the Kural, or in short, the Kural. I'm Thomas Hitoshi Pruiksma, and I've spent the past 5 years, give or take 15, with the harrowing challenge of translating this book into English. And because this is a book that speaks to us of how to embody and practice wisdom in the nitty gritty of everyday life, I've been inviting friends and poets and translators and teachers of all kinds to discuss with me a handful of verses to show how these verses can resonate and reverberate in our own deepest experience. It is a particular pleasure and honor for me to be in conversation today with my friend Gustavo Esteva. Gustavo has been described as a deprofessionalized intellectual and as a nomadic storyteller, but for me, the way I most think of him and the way I would most like to introduce him to you is as a friend. I've known Gustavo for almost 25 years in a friendship that has spanned countries, that has spanned languages. I learned Spanish, in fact, largely so I could be able to enter into conversation with Gustavo in Spanish, although as you will hear and see for yourself, his English is quite beautiful and magnificent in its own ways. And so I could think of no better person with whom to speak about friendship than Gustavo, not simply because of the depth of our friendship, but also because of how much I've learned from him about friendship and also from his friend, Ivan Illich, about friendship. So I'm very pleased and delighted and honored to introduce you, if you haven't already met him, to Gustavo Esteva.
Oh, great, Tom. I am delighted of what you said, and I am just remembered that we met in English 25 years ago. And when our first interaction was only in English. And then you learn in Spanish, and for 20 years we have been talking in Spanish, in my language. This is peculiar now to talk with you in English. This is a special, but it is also a special gift, and a special occasion, and a special occasion of our conversation about friendship.
Yes, it is. I was just remarking to myself, as it were, how interesting it is to be in English again with you, having spent years, decades in Spanish with you in conversation. And yet it also brings things in a way full circle to when we first did meet. And we were able to meet precisely because you could meet me in English. Um, so what I've done is I've shared this chapter with Gustavo and invited him to listen to these verses with his inner ear and see which of them spoke to him, which of them stood out to him. So I'm curious, Gustavo, which of these verses um, seem to have something to say to you, seem to resonate with your own experience when you read them.
I am fascinated with this whole chapter. It's really a delight to read this. And it is great that you spend those years to give us the gift of having been, we cannot learn Tamil, all of us. And then to have access to these poems in English, it is magnificent. But yes, I prefer some to others. For example, I really love it is friendship is not a face smiling. Friendship is a heart that smiles. And this is a very beautiful approach to friendship. We have enough of these smiles of friendship all around us, and people pretending that they are your friends because they are smiling. And we all have 1,000 friends that smile, but that is not friendship. Friendship, you have only a few friends, and then you cherish them. And then it is not, maybe sometimes they are angry and they are not smiling at all, but it is all the time the heart that is smiling. It is, and to have that special connection when two hearts smile, it is something absolutely unique, and you know immediately the difference. With those many people smiling, as if they were your friends, your heart is not smiling, and their heart is not smiling, and you know that. And then, but when you are with your friend, even if your friend is angry, even if your friend is not, it's not in a good moment, he is in depression, he is in whatever kind of things, the heart is always smiling. And then two hearts smiling. It's clearly a beautiful, magnificent image of what friendship is. Yes, this is one of the verses that I love the most.
I think it's so beautiful how you point out, remind us, or of our own experience of how many people around us seem to be friends because we're all smiling outwardly, even though inside our hearts may be scowling or turned away. Um, it's interesting in another one of the verses, which we may or may not talk about, but Tiruvalluvar, the poet, is very clear that sometimes in friendship we actually will thunder at each other. If one of us may be going in a direction that seems to be dangerous or seems to be somehow not in keeping with who we truly are, a friend won't just keep smiling. A friend may speak very angrily, as you say, even as they're speaking from this deeper inner heart that is still smiling. It's such a beautiful reminder that friendship isn't just some kind of nicety. It's not just some pleasantry, like smiling, like small talk that people are sometimes forced to engage in, but is something much deeper and something much more profound, that goes right to the very core of our being and our very core of what it means to be together. And I so appreciate the way that you um, not only respond to a verse like that, but how, in my own experience, I've experienced that with you, in my own friendship with you, how the friendship is something so deeply of the heart and of a smile that is grounded in the heart and not merely in external appearances.
And because you live very far from here, even if when you come from time to time to Oaxaca, but we are not living our lives together. Perhaps we have not had the opportunity to be angry. We have never been in that kind of situation. But I can immediately remember the situations, the conditions with friends here, with some of my friends, when we, both of us or one of us, is talking to the other in a very serious, angry way. I don't like what you are doing. It's terrible that you are doing that. Why you are doing this to yourself? Why you are behaving like that? And this is not laughing. It is very serious, and you can look very angry, and in a sense you are angry, but the heart is smiling all the time, in spite of this show of spectacular rage, trying to impress your friend more with your rage because of what your friend is doing. And then it's one form of expressing love to your friend because you are concerned with what he is doing with himself. And then you express, this is thunder for him. This is not easy for him to accept. Um, because he knows that that this is coming from the heart. This is really here. You are feeling that, and this is you are telling him horrible things out of love for him, because you are concerned, you are feeling bad because of what he is doing. I am thinking right now in a friend that suffers alcohol, and then he cannot control his alcohol, and then sometimes he starts falling into the abyss. And he is a magnificent guy. He's really a great guy, and he's an amazing talent, and he has been destroying himself with that little problem that he has. And I can remember very well sometimes in which I have been shaking him to bring him back to our world and to escape from that tragic confrontation with his alcohol. And that I can immediately remember several scenes that it is clearly passionate love trying to reclaim my friend, to bring my friend back with us, with me, and trying to bring him to our normal quote unquote. And they are nothing like normal, but coming back to our life, to do the beautiful kind of things that he can do. He's a brilliant writer. He has done some magnificent studies about the distant past, trying to discover matriarchy and trying to show the origin of our civilization in matriarchy and all these kind of things. And at the same time, he is magnificent in radio. He produced some radio programs for Tierra, and then he's magnificent in doing. He has a lot of talents and sensitivity, etc. And then suddenly alcohol traps him, and then I can be terrible with him, discussing with him how we can bring him back to his senses. But yes, it is. It's not just slaughter, as the poem says. It is. It can be also thunder.
Yes, indeed. Um, I'm curious how, if there are other verses in this chapter that spoke to you or that resonated with that verse or another verse. Something I've found with this work, even now, having lived with it for so many years, is that it's as if each poem, because each poem is a poem, they they are friends with each other. They speak to each other. So just as we were speaking now about friendship and the heart that smiles, and I was reminded of another verse in the same chapter about how friends also can thunder at each other. There's a way in which the verses themselves are in this dialogue or conversation with each other. So it is always fascinating to me to hear how they speak not only to, but with and among each other, with people who encounter the text, who encounter these poems.
It is very clear. We were talking about two of the poems, and then it was what I was saying was clearly connecting us with another poem, the one that is, what is the throne of friendship? Unwavering support in all ways. That's it. That is it. I can remember. I have been saying many times that in a sense, friendship is higher than it's a higher category of love. That the love in a couple includes necessarily reciprocity. I love you, but you love me also. That is two ways. You always have a kind of expectation about the reaction of your loved one in a couple. But in the case of friends, You don't have that kind of expectation. You can be with your friend without any expectation of reciprocity. Your friend needs you for 1 year or 5 years. You are there, wavering all the time with him or her, no matter what, even if the other person is not returning anything. Yes, the hearts are smiling, but the other person is suffering, the other person is in trouble, the other person cannot give you anything right now, and you don't care. You enjoy whatever you can give to him or her. It's pure joy to give. It's not the expectation. The principle of you are doing that gratis, it is for itself. Not is something that you are investing to get something back. It is just the pure joy of doing something for your friends that may need you for whatever reason, for whatever condition. And then you give for the pure joy of giving. And yes, it's unwavering support in all ways, at any moment, in any condition. Yes, that is one. That's another beautiful poem that clearly resonates with the others.
It is interesting as you're speaking of it now. I'm reminded of meeting, in a sense, your friend Ivan Illich, not in person, but through your stories of Ivan, and particularly of his own deep and extraordinarily unwavering support of his friends. I met in the Ivan that you shared with me, somebody who truly lived with friendship at the center of his life. And that has been an inspiration to me ever since. I mean, it is interesting that we can have the support of friends, even maybe we haven't met them. We meet them through the voice of a friend, or as Ivan Illich himself would have a friend in the 12th century, met through the words left on a page. There is something so astonishing to me about how we can be for each other, we can support each other, we can be unwavering for each other in so many ways, some of which are mysterious, and some of which are more of the everyday experience, but no less profound and beautiful for that.
It is clear. Ivan was saying all the time that his sin was friendship, and polyphilia was really his personal obsession and in a way of life. Um, he knew how to be friends. We were in a state college once in a program, in a series of seminars and lectures that we will have. And suddenly he called us and said, please cancel everything. I am leaving tonight, the state college. And then he explained that he has a friend, a woman in Switzerland, that was dying. And she called him and told him, Ivan, before I die, I want to see you. And then he took the flight and canceled everything and spent the last days of this woman with her in Switzerland. That is a friend. That is a friend that gives absolute priority to friends. That is that the life is defined by friends. And in the last 2 or 3 years of his life, Ivan was sharing with us uh, something that is in itself a poem that can be included in this book. He said, now I know who I am. Finally, I know who I am. I can see myself in the eyes of my friends. This is an amazing poem. An amazing poem, very pertinent for our conversation today, because he clearly transforms the definition of yourselves. There is not one Tom, one definition of Tom. When you are really friends, when you are express yourselves with friends, you are special to your friends, and you behave in a special way with your friend. The face I have of Tom Pruiksma is not the face that everybody sees. It's the face that you have given to me. Then I know an special Tom Pruiksma that is unique. It's my Tom Pruiksma. It does not belong to any other person. And you also have a Gustavo different. It's not the same Gustavo that everybody can see. Then what Ivan is telling us is that first, he is several Ivans. It's not one Ivan. That every one of us is different kind of beings, not one being. And Ivan had one specific quality because he knew everything about so many things. His erudition was really amazing. He was talking with the person in front of him, not teaching, not preaching, just talking with the person. And then he changed the topic, and then he was talking with you about what you knew, about what you were interested, not about anything, about everything, about what he knew. And that created different images. It was completely different how he talked, the themes that he selected to talk with Jean Robert. It was different than the topics he discussed with me. Completely different. He was a different Ivan. And then that is what he's saying. Now I finally know who I am. I can see myself in the eyes of my friends. And I can see very well how different Ivans are in different friends of Ivan. They will tell you a completely different story. We can share some stories, we can share some readings, but we can see very different things in Ivan. There is one I cannot avoid. Sorry for this, Tom. Perhaps I will spoil this, but I cannot avoid reading a few lines of Ivan that I find I needed in this specific conversation. This is something new. This is something that Ivan could not have written 50 years ago. This is something in the current conditions of the world, how the world changed in the last 20 years. And then he wrote this. I do not believe, he said, that friendship today can flower out of political life. I do believe that if there is something like a political life to remain for us in this world of technology, that it begins with friendship. Therefore, this is the point. My task is to cultivate disciplined, self-denying, careful, tasteful friendships. Because perhaps here we can find what the good is. This goes beyond anything which people usually talk about, saying each one of you is responsible for the friendships she can develop, because society will truly be as good as the political result of these friendships. Here is the kind of friendship the poet is talking about. Even in completely different conditions, situations. What Ivan is saying, that today, in the current conditions of the world, you cannot really talk about the common good in public, in a big group, in a mass of people. That what remains for politics, that is always about the common good, is with friends. Only with friends, really, you can talk about what is the common good and
Hmm.
can create the common good for those friends and not for the world, not for the planet, not for the country. It's for a group of friends.
Hmm.
That is when you can cultivate politics today with friends. And then you need to cultivate that kind of friendship. It's not something that happens. It's something that you cultivate, that you really care for it. You don't abandon that friendship. You don't let it die of abandonment because you departed and then you are. Let me say, I have some friends from the university, and there is one of them that convene us once a year, and then we have a conversation. We now are only three of us are still alive. All the others have been dying in the course of the years. And then we enjoy talking once a year for 1 hour. And we remember, and then we can, of course, uh, express some nostalgia for our days in the university and the kind of things that we did together. We have followed completely different paths. I cannot say that they are really my friends today. They are friends. We were very close 60 years ago, but we are not friends now. We abandoned that. We follow different paths, we follow in different contacts, we follow different lives. Then we did not cultivate that friendship. We kept one small space in the heart for that friendship, but very small indeed. It's not really the heart that you are putting with a real friend. Then you need to cultivate friendship. These all friends are not really your friends in the idea that we are expressing here. I don't feel them like my real friends. We were very close, but we are no longer very close.
It is,
Sometimes we don't know about what to talk.
yes. It is interesting. And I think it is telling and revealing of the mind of this particular and mind and heart of this particular poet that the chapter on friendship appears in the section of the book which is really about politics, about wealth and power, um, as if to remind us that the question of friendship, even from 15 centuries allegedly in the past, the poet reminds us that so central to the possibility of any kind of common good, the possibility of a common life that can flourish, is grounded in, is rooted in a friendship which can be, which is rooted in the heart, a heart that smiles and can thunder while smiling. And as you were speaking, Gustavo, I was also reminded that this translation itself grew out of a very particular and very special friendship that I had and continue to have with my Tamil teacher, the man who helped me to be able not only to speak the Tamil language, but to enter into its poetic riches. He died a few years ago, although I still feel that his presence is very present with me and within me. And it's that although he was my teacher, he never took on the formal role of a guru. He didn't demand of me or require of me the sort of traditional things that might be expected of a guru student or disciple relationship. But he was a teacher of this language who was also a friend. And toward the end, it was as if he was a friend who was also a teacher. And the way that he invited me to do this translation was very peculiar because, especially in the first years that I was studying with him, he had no qualms about telling me exactly what he thought I should do or exactly what he thought I should not do. But he never once told me to translate this book, which he and I had studied together a number of years ago in great detail. He only would say, maybe it would be nice if someday someone would translate this book, and maybe they would they would draw upon the same ancient commentaries that you and I studied. And I would hear this and I would honestly think, oh, that would be a beautiful project for someone, for some eager PhD candidate or somebody of that kind. And it was only much later, toward the very end of his own life, that it occurred to me that, well, after years of a kind of ascetic practice almost as a writer and as a poet, I thought, well, maybe I know almost enough to attempt to dare the foolishness of trying to render a poem, a poetic work of this kind into English. And I began one verse a day. And after I had maybe 30, 40 verses, I spoke to my teacher on the phone. Then he was in his 80s. And I said, I was thinking maybe I will give this project a try. I might try translating this book. And he said, oh, good. You finally got this hint. And that's good because I'm not getting any younger. Now you get yourself back to India and we will read your manuscript together. And in fact, that is exactly what we were able to do. And that there was such a steadfastness in him that he would dare not to tell me to do such a project, that he would wait for it to occur naturally to me on its own, and then provide such unwavering support for it, which included, I should add, his own thundering at me if he thought, not in a angry or shouting kind of way, but he would never fail to tell me, oh, I think you haven't quite understood this verse yet. Or, oh, I think this English is okay, but it has no pizzazz. It has no music to it. Can't you do better than that? And I would go back to my piece of paper and scribble my 80th or 81st draft of that verse until it came to some place that felt right. And so, in a way, this entire translation is a testament to a very peculiar and unique friendship that continues to flourish and continues to nourish my own heart as it hopes to keep smiling.
It should have been very special. Your decision first to learn Tamil was something peculiar. It was not something that any student adopts. Of course, every student coming to Mexico or going to India enjoy very much to say a few words in the local language and to express they are very, very happy and very proud that they can express themselves in a restaurant in the local language. But to learn the language is a different matter. It's something different. But in this case, it was something else. Beyond Tamil, it is really studying, quote unquote, this great poet. That it was not study, it was never a study. You were not studying him, her, but you were feeling the book and trying to express in your own language, with your own feelings, the feelings of the poet. That is really different.
It's very true. He too, the poet too, has become a friend who is also a teacher, who is also a friend, that I have gotten to meet and continue to meet through his poems. Now, I'm curious if there are any other poems from this chapter, any other verses from this chapter that lit up for you. And I say that phrase "lit up" thinking of Ivan and his friendship with Hugh of St. Victor, who would also speak of how when we read the way that St. Victor would read, Hugh of St. Victor would read, that words can light up and can inflame and can enkindle us so that we grow brighter in the light of what we are reading because of the way we are reading and because of the way what was spoken or uttered or put to the page also shines for us. So I'm curious if there are any other verses that glimmer
And
in
I
this
say
way.
about Ivan, as far as I know, he read everything written in the last 25 years of the 12th century. Everything written in Europe, in several languages, all of it. But he said several times, some of my best friends are in the 12th century. It was not everything he read. It was not all the texts. It was a few friends like Hugh de San Victor that was really, he felt friendship with him because they will resonate together. And this happened to you in this excursion, in this adventure of translating a poet that was only 15 centuries ago. It was something very, very special. Let me take another one. I would like for you to explain more, to tell me more about this poem, Friendship with Wise Souls. You have already explained to me what is Wise Souls. It's the 782. A moon waxing, fellowship with fools, a moon waning. Can you talk a little more about this for me? What is this moon waxing and the moon waning? What is the meaning of this?
That's a beautiful question. And I probably know only the barest hint of an answer, but I can respond with my own impressions and my own feeling of the verse. Friendship with wise souls, a moon waxing. And it struck me as I was translating it, and it strikes me now thinking of it, that there is this sense in which friendship with people whose hearts are smiling, with people who have dared to connect to the wisdom of their hearts, has this way of continuing to grow into a kind of fullness. And of course, it might be tempting to think, well, then, this growing into fullness, the way that the moon grows into the full moon, then sort of comes to an end and then goes to the process of the moon waning. But the poet, of course, doesn't say that. He says that this friendship is the moon waxing, as if the moon is continually in the process of growing fuller, and that friendship with people of this kind, with wise souls, is like that continual, slow but steady, inexorable process of growing into a kind of a fullness which I think importantly is akin to the way that the moon reflects the light of the sun. It is a fullness which mirrors back something to us, which can guide us in the darkness, which can guide us on, as if we walk on a trail in the dark and the moon is shining, we may see enough of the trail not to stumble. And of course, the poet contrasts this with fellowship with fools, a moon waning, that just as the one kind of friendship is continually growing, another kind of friendship is continually becoming dimmer. The light is continually draining out of it, so that even perhaps the smiles that we might see on the face become less and less alluring, less and less enticing or attractive, even if they look as if they should be smiling. And there is in this also this sense that uh, friendship and wisdom go together, that we become wiser about ourselves and about the world in our deepest friendships. That friendship, in other words, is a form of knowing. And I choose the word knowing to allude to the sense of it not being a kind of abstract knowledge, conocimiento, as we might say in Spanish, but a knowing which is much closer to the root of the word in English of to know, which is connected with to love, to, or as we might say in Spanish, saber, to have the taste, the flavor, to know with our senses and with the deeper senses of our being that the friendship that is possible, the friendship that is has the capacity to continually grow in light, in brightness, in its ability to reflect light, is also connected to what it truly means to learn, what it truly means to become knowledgeable in the best and deepest sense about ourselves, about our own hearts, and about the world and the possibility of a common good in the world.
It is great that this is being taped on, because that specific poem of the book needed that poem that you expressed right now, talking about that specific poem. This whole explanation, of course, I needed. It was not enough to read the poem. I needed your poem, that specific poem that you constructed right now, to really feel what he was saying. It is really different when seeing that poem through your eyes, through your feelings, to your poem when you were talking about this. It is really a beautiful poem.
And
Hopefully,
there's,
we will have it in writing, not only in words.
yes, well, and there's also, I moved to hear that, because one thing I have learned from my study of Tamil in South India, where I was studying not simply books and the work of poets, but also living with real people who, maybe themselves don't even read in that conventional sense, and yet who have their own deeply embodied forms of wisdom and of being and of speaking, is the continual reminder of how we can become for each other a kind of poem, a kind of poetic reflection of each other's hearts. Or to put it another way, that friendship itself is and can be a form of poetry, a form of dissymmetric complementarity, a form of being for the so-called other in such a way that we are together and not the same, and yet together and meeting each other in a way like the words in a great poem meet each other and are separate and together and reverberate with each other and create a kind of music together that they could not have created on their own.
I would say something more with our friend Illich, that this is the moment today in the world, in the current horror, given the terrible conditions in which we are living today, in which we really need desperately that kind of thing, that kind of inspiration, that kind of poem. It is that kind of inspiration that can rescue us in the current conditions. At one point, Ivan wrote that neither revolution nor reform have been produced a social change, that after 100 years of experimenting with revolutions and reforms, we know that they cannot produce the social change that we need. But he said that only the right story, a powerful tale, a new powerful tale, can tell us what to do. It is today because we are changing from one era from the other, and then the old era is no longer valid. The rationality of the old era is not valid, and the new era, we don't have just yet the language of the new era. Then it is only the artists, the poets, the musicians that can get the inspiration, because they could not produce whatever they produce with the logic of the old era or the new era. They draw their inspiration from some other place. And it is that other place that we need today. It is the inspiration, it is poems, stories, powerful tales that we need to find a way in the midst of the horror, in the disasters in which we are living. And that is why that is one of the main reasons why it's so important to publish this book right now. We need that kind of inspiration. And as you know very well at this point, it's not, it is speaking to us today, not talking about things that happened 15 years, 100 years ago. It is telling us that powerful tale of a soul with whom we can talk. We can have a real conversation and even certain friendship.
Yes, I could hardly put it better listening to your beautiful poem, Gustavo. Uh, I'm wondering as we bring our conversation not to a close, because I think any great conversation is continually open, but to a pausing point. If there's any last things that you would like to say, or any questions that you might have for me and my strange adventure with this work, anything else that occurs to you in this moment to add?
I want to insist that this is really your moment. I am absolutely convinced that it is you as a poet and your translation of these poems. This is the moment, because we know that we are lost in the current conditions of the world. All the things in which we believed are no longer there. The climatic collapse, it's the institutional collapse, but it is basically the collapse of all of our beliefs, all the principles, all the theories, all the kind of things since we were, our behavior and our thinking and our feelings were oriented with certain roots, certain foundations. We had some foundations, and now those foundations are over, are no longer valid. We know that they are no longer valid. And then we are lost. And then on some people are going to the fundaments, and they become fundamentalist, and we know how dangerous is that. Trying to find refuge of this horror of losing any support for about your beliefs, your behavior, your thinking. And then it is poems. It is the inspiration of these poems that can see something else, that can see another dimension, that can feel something different that we need in this specific moment. Then it is only time to say thanks for having used it so many years on the translation of this book, because for us it is really, really needed now. We really need to use that. not to imitate the poet, not to follow the poet, not to find that it's a new leader. It is to be inspired, to have to find their inspiration and hope, to think in a different way and to feel in a different way. And that is why it is so beautiful, so important to have these poems right now. I really enjoy it. This I am grateful that you selected this section on friendship, because really I adored every one of them.
Well, thank you so much, dear friend Gustavo. It has been really a very beautiful gift for me to sit with these verses and to sit with you, to be in conversation with you. I know that you are in the process of putting together a website where people who are interested in reading what becoming friends with your own writing, your own work, can visit and explore the many pages and beautiful explorations that you have carried on through your own adventuring. Do you want to say anything about this forthcoming way that people can
Yes,
encounter?
it is two things. The first one is that I love to write. I have been writing for 70 years. I really love it, but I have never been able to dedicate myself to write. Then all my writings are in the evening and the weekend, running from one place to the other for a public presentation. And then I started to discover um, through friends in internet a very chaotic presentation of Gustavo Esteva. And someone opened a page, and not me, and create wrote something in Wikipedia, and it is not so bad, but it is not me. And then I started to see myself in not in nothing that is any close to me, to how I see myself. And then I am trying to collect my stuff that is dispersed, and a friend is helping me to put it in, in a way that can be shared. And then in January or February, I will launch my own page with all my stuff in a certain order and certain classification, that where I think it is a more respectful way to deal with my stuff, and not what is happening today in internet with me.
Well, I will be sure to include the website address when I share this conversation, and I will invite anyone who is listening, who is intrigued to visit and explore work which has been very important to me, and which has been inspiring to me, and which I think has the capacity to inspire and to move many others. I'm so glad that it will be available. So I again thank you, really, from the bottom of my heart, for this time, for your care, for your presence, and for your voice, and most of all for your friendship, Gustavo.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you. One of these days we need to be not in virtual way, but not
Yes,
each other like always.
yes, we will be back in person soon, I hope.
Yes.